You're listening to Unfiltered Brew, hosted by Master Cicerone Joe Vogelbacher and brewery founder Eric Flanigan, featuring special guest Spencer Lueders out of the Sugar Creek Brewing Company in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Welcome, Spencer. What do you think of these new cans?
I think it's awesome. I think the first year, last year when we did this and having Dari Calamari make that logo, super excited about it. And the tweaks that you guys did to this year is just better. So the beer is awesome. It's my favorite beer. And the label looks incredible. So hopefully it brings more awareness and some additional funds to 24 Foundation this year. So I appreciate you guys for doing that.
Oh yeah, it's our pleasure. Let's open one up. Grab one. That's good to go.
Now there is a way to, you have to educate me on pouring beers because you've said it to me before, but there is a proper way to do it.
I mentioned this on the last show, but I think if you have time, and you're not in a rush, people rush beer all the time. And if you're servicing the bar and there's a line of people trying to get a beer, of course you want to get the beer to them fast. But there's actually like a resurgence of these things now they call slow pours, which is basically a stack pour using certain equipment behind the bar. But I think you open it up, and if you have time and you want to enjoy it, you try to fill the glass with 3 pours. So the way I do it is I foam it up, so straight down the middle, and you can control the height to kind of give you some control on how much foam goes in the glass.
You want it to foam a lot?
Oh yeah. Now the foam that goes back that's in the beer, you want that to come out and release the aroma of the beer before it gets into your stomach and it makes you, burp and that kind of stuff. So it makes it more drinkable. It accentuates the aromatics, and if you have time, try to do it with 3 pours. So give it a go.
Okay. So Eric, you had your can only a couple inches from the glass.
I'm really trying not to foam over on TV. That's all. There's a lot of pressure.
So keep going until I get near the top. So when I see people drinking, at a tailgate or whatever, and they're just drinking from the can, what are they missing by doing that?
What a great question. Yeah. So, flavor, it's 3 things. It's aroma. So that's everything brought in from the nose. It's all the stuff with your tongue, your taste, sweet, sour, salty, bitter, umami, fat, metallic, the basic senses. And then it's texture and touch. They call that the trigeminal sensation. So that's like mouthfeel, cooling, warming, heating, pain, those sort of things all come together. So the biggest component of that is aroma. Just think about if you had coronavirus or if you knew somebody that lost their sense of smell and the impact that had on their flavor and enjoyment of food, right? So when you pick up a can and you drink it out of like this instead of out of the glass, you're eliminating, it's like having coronavirus. You're eliminating your whole nose from the equation, right? It's just going up against the metal. But if you pick a glass up like this, now you're putting your nose right there so you can get the bouquet and the aromas that the brewers intended you to kind of smell, right? So you're eliminating it. Now, one of the local breweries down the street, I won't name it because it wouldn't be good to do it publicly, but it's funny because I have someone say, I really love this beer, but I only like it out of the bottle. When I pour it in the glass, I don't like it. And I said, so what you're actually saying is you don't like the beer, right? Because you don't taste it when it's when you're drinking straight from the bottle. But if it's the famous lawnmower beers, now this glass that you're pouring into actually holds 16 ounces. So you can fit the whole thing in there, right? But you'll end up foaming it over, right? So I try to get it where it's, look, you can see mine now. It's actually coming up over the top a little, right? Now this gives like a meringue and a rich kind of presentation to the beer. But hey, look, we didn't come to do a beer class today. Today we came to talk a little bit about some of the amazing things that you've done, Spencer. And to tell you the truth, I've had the pleasure of knowing you now for several years, and Eric and I have been involved with supporting the 24 Foundation since we opened, pretty much kind of indirectly, and now we're kind of directly involved. But you're one of my heroes locally here for all the stuff you've done. It's amazing, and you're always looking to help people all the time and help them with their career. And And I just want to hear a little bit. I'd love to hear a little bit about what it was like starting the 24 Foundation. And, now I think how much have you raised over the years? It's been over 20 years, right?
Yeah. 27 million, something like that.
$27 million. I mean, think about that. You could rest easy at the end of your life thinking, hey, I really did something. If everything else was meaningless, you can at least say, hey, but the truth is, not all the other stuff isn't meaningless either, right? So I was hoping we could talk a little bit about your experience with the Velodrome, setting that up, but
and make sure you tell people what a Velodrome is too. It's impressive to see whether you're into bikes or not. It's very cool to see.
Yeah, no doubt. So I mean, with the 24 Hours of Booty coming up in a few weeks, why don't we start there and tell us a little bit about how that started and how you decided to actually make it into like its own organic thing that's grown and runs itself nowadays, right? That's what every businessman kind of wants to do.
I think too, from more the entrepreneurial side too, because we talk a lot about our problems on this podcast, and a lot of the people that listen are, power goes out in the middle of a brew. How do you deal with it, kind of thing? So I imagine building something like that wasn't easy, So tell us the good stuff too,
Yeah.
What year? Start with that.
Yeah. So the first 24 Hours of Booty was in 2002. And that was just me on the bike. No permit, no road closure, no permission. Pretty much didn't even know if I could do it. I had to borrow a bike actually to do it. Didn't have a bike at the time. But I'll set the stage, though. You're talking about entrepreneurship and kind of mindset and all these other things. So let me take you all the way back, like why I would even have the idea to do this or want to do this, because at the time I didn't have cancer in my family even, right? So why would I even try to do this? So I'm taking it all the way back to when I was like 5, right? This is when this to me, the mindset started like that early. And there was a distinguishing moment that I have never forgotten, that I was in the backyard at my house with my dad, and there's this field behind our house, and we walk through this field, and we're walking in the back of this field, and there was a weeping willow tree branch in this field randomly. No other trees around, no nothing. And it's green. So I look at my dad and I say, hey, Dad, do you think we could stick this in the ground and it would become a tree? And he goes, Spencer, it's so crazy, it just might work. All right. So we go back to the house and stuck that thing in the ground and watered it, and that thing turned into a giant tree.
Oh, that's my awesome. Gosh.
It actually did, right? So that was like a touch point moment that I keep coming back to, because that phrase is like permeated my life. Like, I do things to see what's going to happen, whether I know it's going to happen or not. Like it's risk taking, but in a good way. And like, I just do things like this all the time. And so that mindset of like, I don't know what's going to happen, but let's see, because something really good could come out of this. And that was like that defining moment for me. I was that young, right? And so I, bringing it all the way forward to Booty, like I had done things as a kid, like trying little businesses and different things and failing along the way and all these things, right? But when I got to Booty, like I didn't know what was going to happen, but I had this compelling drive to try to do something in my community using the things that I liked, which was riding the bike at the time, and wanted to do something that can make an impact in the cancer community.
And kind of authentic to yourself, right? At the same time, stuff that you like to do. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's just awesome. And it's in an area in Charlotte that has got to be one of the most beautiful areas in Charlotte. With
it is.
The tree canopy. And now if somebody else wanted to do an event there, there's no way they'd be able to do it.
Right. But at the time, like I didn't name the Booty Loop, which people think I'm the Booty Loop guy. I'm like, no, I didn't actually name the Booty Loop. I've tracked it down, and there's some lore there, right? But when I moved to Charlotte in '99, I went to it's called the Dowd Y. We used to call it the Central Y back then. And the woman behind the counter said, if you want to go running, just go down East Boulevard and you'll hit the Booty Loop. And I'm like, okay. So I was doing that like everybody else. So the Booty Loop was there for a good 6 or 7 years prior to me even moving here. And it had been known as that, right? But certainly with 24 Hours of Booty, it has put the Booty Loop on the map, and people know that neighborhood. It is super beautiful, and the neighbors have been really gracious over the years, supporting us, and Queens supporting us. So it's been a pleasure to be in that neighborhood, and we're trying to be very respectful of everybody who lives in the Loop and participates in events in the Loop. I've talked to many brides who are getting married at Queens during the weekend of 24 Hours of Booty, and lots of things going on there. So we're happy to be there. We're grandfathered in, and there's no change in it, and there's no new events.
Are you really great? Because
Yes.
Charlotte has grown a lot.
Yeah.
And twice now it's grown a lot. And the event has too. So that thing's grandfathered in. It's never.
Yeah. Dave Christopher is our guy at the city, and he's been wonderful to work with over the years.
I mean, I think it's one of the flagship events in Charlotte.
I think it's one of the best because, like you're saying, the neighborhood supports it. It's great views, the oak trees. If you've never been to Charlotte and seen the canopy that we have, it's amazing. It showcases all the really great things, and it's for a good cause. And it helps that they raise so much money,
Yeah, I mean, Spencer, can you tell us a little bit about, for our listeners, what was the event like when you first started versus what is the experience like today if somebody was going to go and participate in this amazing event?
Yeah. Much different. So the first, like I said, I didn't really have a plan other than trying to ride my bike for 24 hours on the Booty Loop. So
did you accomplish that?
I did. The plan I had was I had rented like an RV. It would look like the bus from Shazam, if you remember that show. It was terrible. It actually broke the morning of the event. And my sister had come up from Atlanta with her family. My wife was there. My dad was out from California, the guy who got me into cycling. And so the plan was just to get on the bike and ride. So we had like a 10x10 pop-up in front of Queen's University. We had a shoebox to put donations in. We had a couple banners up. And I had written a note to everybody and put it on their porches or mailboxes on the inside of the Booty Loop a little bit before, saying, hey, I'm going to be out here riding at night. Will you please turn your porch lights on? Help me light the way.
That's a grassroots effort right there.
Totally. All right. So get on the bike, and there's no fanfare. There's nobody there. Just, okay, it's time to start. Let's go. So I had a couple buddies with me at the beginning for a couple laps, and then some of my cycling buddies who were out riding come down and ride with me a little bit off and on. And so I was very much focused on, you hear Simon Sinek, what's your why? I was focused on the what, 100%. I was like, I'm a bike rider. What am I wearing? What am I eating? What am I drinking? What gear am I in? How fast am I going? What's my heart rate? I'm just thinking about the mechanics of actually doing this. And over the course of that event, the why came to me. And I didn't know that was going to happen. So the why came to me in the form of people and survivors. And so I'm riding along by myself on the Booty Loop some point during the day, and I see this person in a driveway of someone's house on a bike, and they see me go by, and then they click in and they come up and ride next to me. They pull up next to me and they say, hey, are you the guy that's riding 24 hours on the Booty Loop? Yeah. And they're like, well, hey, I'm John. I'm a cancer survivor. I heard about what you're doing, and it's inspiring to me. So I wanted.
On the very first one, you already had people. That's awesome.
And so word had gotten out a little bit somehow, and
hey, you knocked on everyone's door for their front porch, right?
Yep.
Front porch light.
Yep. So survive.
Like the scene in Forrest Gump, right?
So I'm riding and I'm listening. I'm just riding next to somebody, and they're telling me survivor's telling me their story, and we're like inspiring each other. I'm like, okay. And then a little bit later, it happens again. And it happens another time. And then a guy comes out at midnight who lost his wife to breast cancer. He wanted to do a lap with me at midnight, 4 a.m. Some guy randomly shows up on a mountain bike, freezing cold at the time. We did it, the first one was in November of 2002. So, telling me her story, he was inspired. So I'm not riding fast, but I'm listening to these stories. I'm like, oh man. By the end of the ride, I was so jacked up. I was so hyped. I was like, that was amazing. Like something happened where this became like a venue for people to share and share their stories and communicate, like this has to be a thing. Like I thought maybe this was a one and done, check the box, I'm the first guy to do this, done. And I'd raise a little bit of money, great. But I was like, oh no, this has to be a thing. Like I have to figure out, I don't know how to run a nonprofit, I don't know how to run an event, nothing. But I have to figure this out. So that started me down the path of philanthropy and making an impact. So you mentioned like $27 million is pretty incredible. But what actually I chase after is the impact that we've had on people and how many people have been able to experience that same feeling. And that's what I chase after every year is like, I think it's just amazing that we've had thousands of people come through that have been touched by what we've done and they have that feeling. That's like the best thing for me, Wow. Yeah. So fast forward to today, it is a well-oiled machine. We failed every different way. I mean, so many grassroots things I can tell you, of how to operationally running the event, systems and procedures and evacuation procedure, all these things we've learned. So now, like, I used to go out on Wednesday and I'd stay out at the booty loop until the event on Friday night. And I was just, my hair's on fire and doing everything. And like, I can show up pretty much like an hour before the event now because the team is dialed.
Right. How many people are on your team now?
So we have 4 people on staff at 24, but there's nearly 300 volunteers at 24 Hours of Booty.
And it's the police force.
Yeah, half the Charlotte police force feel like we're out there, but which,
How many people in general come out for this event now?
So it caps at 1,200 people participating, and that's pretty much nose to tail bike riders around the entire 3-mile booty loop. And it's varied from year to year, but it gets pretty close. And it's just, what I want people to know who don't know about what the event is, it's not a race. There's no awards for distance. We don't even track it. It's really just, you have closed roads and you're open to ride it for as much as you want for 24 hours. And it's more of like a celebration. It's, I'd say party, but it's like people are out there sharing stories. They're engaging with the community. The neighbors are all out there having parties and cheering everybody on. And it's just like, wow, we just did something awesome. We're out here celebrating. The money's raised and we're excited and sharing and being able to put that back into the community is cool.
Yeah, that is, it's really a special thing.
The pizza at midnight's a savor, especially when you're putting carbs in.
Well, listen, it used to not be, I remember going to Taco Bell and just grabbing burritos and driving my car over to Dunkin' Donuts in the morning and trying to feed people. And, now it's like proper meals, yep. Friday night, midnight pizza party, breakfast, lunch, there's programming with survivorship cafes and all these awesome sponsors are out there and engaging with the participants and the Bootyville camping area. And
you see a lot of camaraderie out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where does I guess everybody always asks, right, when you're donating to a nonprofit or and you're collecting that money, where does of course the money goes towards operating the nonprofit, right? And then the proceeds left over, where do they go and what kind of, where do you see that making the biggest impact?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that was important to me is I wanted to do something like right now, like what can I do now? And that has continued through the mission of the organization in how we support the cancer community. So what we do is the funds that are raised go into cancer navigation and survivorship. So cancer research is super important, and there's billions of dollars from NIH and all these organizations putting billions of dollars into that. We're raising $1 million-ish a year, and we think that the best use of those funds can be local and needed today, which is, when someone gets diagnosed with cancer, they think, am I going to live? And then if I live, how do I get my life back? So that's navigation and survivorship. The navigators are people who walk you through because nobody knows they're deer in the headlights. So these people know exactly what to do, and They take the load off you. They schedule your appointments. They make sure you're there. They translate all this cancer speak and just lower the stress amazingly. And so those are navigators. And then survivorship is, we fund 60 odd programs at Levine Cancer Institute, Levine Children's Hospital here in Charlotte. And those survivorship services help people get their physical strength back, mental strength back, spiritual strength back. It could be art, healing, touch, Tai Chi, acupuncture, song, tons of stuff. And everybody, these programs resonate with people differently, so they're available to people. And so those are programs that get people through the second half. Once they are surviving, now they can thrive.
Spencer, I want to ask you about something, kind of take us in a different direction for a second. I know originally when you started this that being a cyclist, that Lance Armstrong was one of your heroes. And if I remember correctly, I wasn't involved back at the beginning, but you donated the funds to his foundation. Is that right? And then what was it? Can you talk a little bit about what that was like with the controversy surrounding Lance and how that affected the organization and your opinion of him and the whole entire thing? Because it's kind of shifted away from supporting that right at this point, right?
Yeah. So I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and Lance lived in Plano. So just the town north of where I was. And he's a little bit younger than me, but not much. And I remember reading about him in high school. Like, he was in the local magazines and local papers, winning everything, phenomenal athlete, local guy. So when he was diagnosed with cancer, like right in the middle of his pro cycling career, I thought, that's what he's trying to do is important work. And so how can I support my homeboy, pretty much? And so, yeah, I was inspired by what he was doing, and I was trying to do something on a local level. He had an event in Austin he was doing. So I was like, can I try to do something like that? I'm not him, but I can try something. Donated money to Lance Armstrong Foundation, later Livestrong, for a long period of time. And then, in 2012, when the wheels fell off and the doping scandals were rampant across pro cycling, he departed from Livestrong and made us think harder about what we were doing. And we decided that our money could be better served by staying local. And so at the same time, 24 Hours of Booty, we had multiple 24 Hours of Booty events. We had one in Atlanta, we had one in Indianapolis, we had one in Baltimore area. So we pulled all that back over the subsequent years and decided to triple down on Charlotte. So, that inward reflection and putting the money locally has actually turned out really well, because we can see where that money goes. We can go, the three of us could go to the LCI right now and walk up to the 7th floor and see the programs and the people and the machinery that we bought. Yep. That we, meaning everybody at 24 Hours of Booty, has bought and is paying for, that is making an impact on local people. So it feels really good to do that. So I don't regret what happened. I mean, I think that was a weird era in cycling. And, it was, I feel for Lance. I mean, he was leading this global organization, and, I bet he felt like dead man walking, like at some point this is going to come out, and then what happens? So
I heard that did you get to meet him or ride with him, or did he come to the Booty Loop at one point?
No, I've met him, talked to him, ridden with him a bunch. I mean, but he never made it to Booty because usually the tour was ending around then. So, but I've been down to Austin a bunch and, talked with him. I keep up with him a little bit here and there. But that shift, how it impacted 24 was we decided to just kind of go local. And that's been great because so many people are moving to Charlotte, and there's so many new people So it's energized me to try to come up with other events that we've been implementing around the calendar to keep 24 Foundation, going, other than just having one event, every summer.
I mean, one of, I think it's got to be tough, especially when you have, like you said, somebody from your hometown, and that erupts, that sort of scandal erupts. How did you feel about him personally? Did you forgive him for it? And, some people are just brutal when it happens like that, but I'm sure it was, I don't know the details of the whole scandal, but it kind of went across the whole industry, right? He wasn't the only one doing it. It was kind of par for the course, right? Mm-hmm. But I guess the fans, they can be unforgiving in the fact that there was deception involved, right? So how do you reconcile that? You move past it? Because, as an example, one of my favorite guys was Arnold. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, what he accomplished, and they have a documentary on him now, actually, on Netflix, what he accomplished coming as an immigrant, setting his plans, years in advance, saying he was going to do things and accomplishing them and doing them and moving through. And then, you find out about his, the child that he had outside of the marriage, and his marriage imploded. But this kind of stuff happens in life, and nobody's perfect, right? So, can you just expand a little bit what you think about that?
Yeah. Like I said, when he was a phenomenal athlete growing up. I mean, he's been that way since we were kids. And at the era when he went over there, he's talked about this before, that, you either went home and stopped cycling, or you had to do it. So that's a lot of pressure, and he decided to do it. And he was, won the Tour 7 years in a row amongst everybody else, so he was still best of that era. And the other sports have had this too. I mean, baseball and, bodybuilding and stuff. I think people were really harsh on him because of the way he probably treated some people. There's a lot of documented stories about how he treated people. But he has also told me personally, but also I think it's been in some articles too, that he's tried to make amends with people that he really treated harshly, and that he was, he's financially and try to make people whole. But yeah, as a man, it's like, yeah, he's come through it. He's doing great things now, in his business life, and he's doing some sporting things. And so, yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean,
that's great. Yeah, no, it's fine. Maybe we can shift gears a little bit, but thanks for telling us about that. But because I remember it kind of vividly, but I wasn't in the cycling community, and I know the foundation was involved, so appreciate that. So back on the theme of cycling, I didn't know this when I first met you, but the Velodrome that we have in South Carolina, you were involved in helping to make that concept, planting the willow branch in the ground down there, and making that grow into what it is today. Can you tell us a little bit about what a Velodrome is and about that process?
Yeah. So the Velodrome is a banked cycling track that you typically see in the Olympics. And there's a track bike, has one gear, fixed, no brakes. So it's a special type of bicycle, special type of racing. And you really only see it in the Olympics, but it's a great sport. And it's sort of a niche area of cycling in general. And so I knew about it and watched it before, but what really got me thinking about it more was, quick background, I went to school as graduated mechanical engineering degree, went back to school, to law school, to be a patent attorney. So when I was in my second summer of law school, I had an internship in Portland, Oregon. And so I was out there clerking for this firm, and there's a velodrome in Alpenrose, which is right over the hills outside of Portland. And I rode my bike over there and started riding on that track. And it's an old track. It's actually gone now, but at the time it was there, and I'd never ridden on a track before, and it was super cool. And we got to have one of these, right? And so I started researching what they're about and all this stuff, and wrote a business plan, and had figured out had the blueprint pretty much on how to do it, but I didn't know how to get it done. So I got back to Charlotte, and when I moved to Charlotte, I was just riding with a bunch of guys and racing and stuff, and floated the idea, and a couple guys bid on it, and one of my buddies, who's actually a brain surgeon here in town, really locked on with me on it. So we decided, let's try to get this done. And when we pitched it in Charlotte, it was the same year that the Whitewater Center was pitched in 3rd Ward by the football stadium in Charlotte. They put in this concept of a Whitewater Center in uptown Charlotte. And Charlotte really bid on that. And so when we were trying to make headway on our Velodrome project, they were all about the Whitewater Center. And so we didn't get any play. We didn't get any looks. So my partner in this has a medical practice in Rock Hill as well. So he had some contacts. So we just went down there and started talking to them. They'd never heard of a Velodrome. They didn't know what it was. They'd never heard of this thing before. So it was a long process of...
How much did you figure one of these cost to build?
So it depends on how you make it. Some are wood, but they don't last as long because,
Sure.
And so the ones that you want, the one that we wanted was made out of concrete. So it'd last 30 years, something like that. And so I figured out who the best concrete velodrome maker was in the world, Sherman Architects in Germany. Sent them an email, no reply. And we're just these, couple guys trying to get something done. It's a multi-million-dollar project. So it was years, like literally years of my buddy Mike Cowan and I meeting with Parks and Rec down there, Parks and Tourism guys in Rock Hill, explaining Velodrome, explaining it to the mayor, city council, city manager, taking them to velodromes on trips. And we just kept coming. We just didn't give up. It was enough there. We're like, you're busy, I'm busy, but they're kind of interested in this. Like, what do we got to do next? Well, they want this. So they want fundraising. They want, whatever. We want a committee. We just kept getting it done. And so there was 2 main things after years of doing this that really tipped it over. One was the downturn in 2008. There was some government funding that came up for development. If you could get a project,
TARP funding?
Something like that. Yeah. And it was, if you could get a project of X amount that benefited the community, the government would match it or something. So we added on BMX, cyclocross, mountain bike trails, and a crit course as part of the program, and we met that threshold so then we could get the matching funds. And credit to city manager down there, Dave Vihan, who figured that out, and that was huge because then the money kind of was there. And then secondly, Riverwalk, which is where the Velodrome is, Dave Williams, a developer down there who was putting this whole Riverwalk development together, new cycling, new velodromes, and we talked to him about it. He said, tell you what, I'm going to donate a bunch of land to the city in this project, and I'm going to tell them you can have this land if you do these cycling projects. So after about 8 years of this.
8 years. That is a vision, right?
Yeah. We were sitting in the city council meeting and they approved. And Mike and I looked at each other and like, I cannot believe this happened. And it was a labor of love, to be honest.
And how many man hours over the 8 years?
I don't know. And this is when he's a practicing, brain surgeon, and I'm practicing law at a firm and then in-house at NASCAR. It was just a long time, but we just didn't give up. And it's been, credit to the guys in Rock Hill. They put their own necks on the line to make this happen. And I think they've been rewarded though, because it's been the biggest economic impact driver in Rock Hill history. The BMX track down there is arguably the best in the whole world. They've had world championships down there once, and I think another one's coming up. Velodrome's cool. I mean, it's amazing.
It's an unbelievable accomplishment. So I have two questions. One is, what advice would you give to somebody trying to do something similar, making their dream like this, like from concept to reality? And then two is, well, first let's answer that first one.
So, I've had many times people have said, "Hey, can I pick your brain on this?" And how did you do that? And I've talked to people who want to try to do something similar, whether it's in the Carolinas or out west or whatever. And it was a little bit of luck, but a lot of work. And we just
Greediness.
Yeah, just perseverance. But the Velodrome and Booty kind of started at the same time, right? And so there's a lot going on there for me personally, right? And when I look back at that time, I think what I couldn't admit it to myself, but I think what I realized was I had been chasing the wrong stuff all along. Like, I went to engineering school because it's hard and you can get a kick-ass job, and I did. And then I went back to law school because, you can get a kick-ass job and you make a lot of money. So I did that. But all these things were coming out of me while I'm sitting there grinding out patent applications and stuff. And it took me a while to kind of come to grips with, like, I shouldn't be doing this. Like, where is my heart at? Like, what am I actually passionate about or good at? And so those Booty and the Velodrome were like things that gave me energy. And it took me a while to kind of say, okay, like, I need to figure out, like, how to
entrepreneur part.
Yeah. I just didn't want to, I don't know if I was too afraid or just not educated myself, or just didn't just go after what I was good at from the very beginning. I mean, I can do math and I can do engineering. I can do all that stuff, but, like, am I super passionate about it? Like, I don't know. I get more energy from these other things. So I, like, flip my whole life around. Like, some people make a lot of money and then they become a philanthropist. Like, I just became a philanthropist first, and now I'm, like, been chasing the rest of it later, and it's all come back to me, right? It's all been good, but it was like, that was a hard period of my life, because in my family life we were having kids and all this stuff, because in, like, crazy times, like, all my energy was about, like, these ventures that, like, I'm working on that really have no real financial, like, I don't get paid. I got paid from none of it. Like, it's not like I'm doing it for a job. I was just like, I don't know, but it's awesome. Like,
community building.
I feel like I have to do these things, So
Yeah.
Bless my wife for putting up with me for that,
My second one is, I guess, more of a comment. I've been down there and it's just a magnificent facility. It's unlike anything around here. And I think you said it was the #1 driver in Rock Hill. Is that what you said? And all the work you did over 8 years, and nobody knows that Spencer Lueders was involved with this thing. So I just want to put a public thing out there. I know we probably have 1 or 2 listeners on here, and that's probably it. But if the city ever hears this thing, please, let's put up a little plaque at least for Spencer and his, what was your friend's name?
Mike Cowan.
Mike Cowan. Yeah, let's get something up there at least for the hard work. They didn't get paid a nickel, built the community like this. It's just phenomenal inspiration. I think more people need to know about it. So, look, you didn't do it for the credit or for the money, obviously. You wanted, and that's truly altruistic endeavor. But how cool would it be to, if I was in charge, I'd put a statue of you guys up there, riding on your bike with a 24 Foundation logo. But no, that's awesome, man. Just phenomenal. So,
brewery owners, you have this cool brand you guys have built, but I don't know if they understand, like, the risk you guys have taken and the terror that probably has crossed your mind, just like me buying a business. Like, it's not for the faint of heart, but it's like, look at the impact you're having, not only on your employees, but, like, the community. It's like, I don't know if people appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what scares me is the fact that what I do is what puts food on the table for my family. So when I get worried about things, when I get really worried, it's kind of like, oh shoot, if I fail at this, what am I going to do provide for the family. That's that ratcheted up the pressure once we had kids. But I've been an entrepreneur now. I've been working on my own every paycheck coming from my own work, my own business since I was 25. So when I was younger, you asked the question about how do you marry the risk. I didn't care. It's like, what do you have to lose? Just do it. Right? Do it. And if you fail, no big deal. Get up and go again. Right. And then as I started having children, I started getting more nervous. And then I had kind of a hallelujah point because my wife told me at some point, because I was having panic attacks because the pressure was getting so high. She said, listen, if it all goes to hell, I'm here still. I can help pull us out of the ditch. You're not alone.
Yeah.
So having that kind of great support was just massive. That was like, okay, you can charge ahead and give it a go. So, even now, 17 years into this, we're about to take on another $800,000 in debt at the brewery to kind of enhance the customer experience, put addition on the tap room. And we're running with a short-term lease right here, and with a vision of moving this and building this grand, kind of like you had with the Velodrome, building this grand facility maybe over in the river, right? So why are we doing that? Well, we have to make an ROI, and we have challenges just like in anybody in business. With our building was bought, so Beacon Industrial owns the building now, and our rent's going up 300%. So you have to constantly, and I know you know this as an entrepreneur, and you kind of elaborate a little bit on it with the booty loop and setting up the ride, is that you have to be willing to change all the time, right? And that's so not only risk, but change all the time, because if you just do the same thing, some people can get away with it, but I think you have to be flexible and keep going. But I don't know, what's it been like for you, Eric? Because you left everything to come
Same
do
way.
this.
The biggest thing is, the mind's you and I were just talking about yesterday. The mind's a very powerful thing. So you got to keep the mind positive, and you got to sometimes have those little wins to get to the big win too, because sometimes the big wins are much further away. Your big win on the drone was what, 8 years away? You've got to be mentally tough to do that. But yeah, what's always bittersweet is watching hard work for me. Watching hard work eventually kind of age out and then go away. We've had great brands that have done well for us and gone away. We've held on to those too long, or projects that we've held on too long. But it's that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, you have to be persistent and flexible. So, and I was just thinking about this yesterday, and almost kind of like brought tears to my eyes thinking back on it, was all the different employees who really look, if I wanted to just be rich, okay, and it was just about being rich, I would do something different, because the beer business is not that. You're not going to get rich doing this. Maybe the 1%. Everybody always looks at that 1%. But look, every month since we've opened, a new brewery started. This is a tough business, and you don't get rich in it, right? So I told Eric since day one, he can back me up on this. Like, my whole position was, I want to do something where I can tap dance to work every day. And I think maybe I had that realization too, like you did, Spencer, where you weren't alone. I'm an engineer as well. That's my background, but when you reflect on what you want to do every day, it's not work if you really love it, right? So I wanted to tap dance to work, and I want my team to tap dance to work too, like make an environment where they can. But it's really hard to do back in the brewery where it's 98 degrees outside in July. So we're in July right now, right? We're actually brewing pumpkin beer, which is hilarious, right? You don't think about that coming up right now in the hottest time of the year. We're brewing that. And then you're running 5 huge 500-gallon tanks with steam. It gets 120 degrees back there, right? And you're on your feet for 8 to 10 hours. It's hard work, right? And my mission of having them tap dance to work every single day, it's disheartening for me, is what I say, when so many people come and go, and as the company is growing, you don't, like, my dream is to be able to share the rewards with all of them. And, burnout's a real thing. It happens to people in this industry, and they come in, people that you love, like your family, like, hey, I can't take it anymore. I got to go. Let's flip this. So I'm constantly thinking, what can I do to make it better in here for them, and make the place a better place to work. And at the same time, because happy people and people that tap dance to work are more productive, number one, and they're more pleasant to be around.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like maybe I'm talking too much, but Jack Welch, he's the famous GE CEO. He had like that old culture, the culture triangle, or the square, and it's basically the idea is 51% is culture and 49% is productivity, and we got to get people that uplift the other people, and that's the most important thing, because you can train people on how to do the job and be more productive. So I don't know, it's a tough business. I mean, we have more than 30 people here, and we have people rotate throughout the tap room. I'm always shocked at the end of the year when we do our W-2s, Spencer, that it's a stack like this. If you look at it, like, where did all these people go? Oh, we had tons of part-time help. We have retirees. I'll put this against anybody. I think we have the most diverse staff in Charlotte. We have all different kinds of nationalities. We have men, women, we have veterans. And the team shrinks and expands, but I don't have anybody. I have nobody here. Actually, we have John DeMont. He's the only person we have out of hundreds that have been here kind of since we started, right? Everybody, they come, they go, they come and they go. And Eric and I are the mainstays.
And, I will say this too. We haven't had a lot of turnover compared to a lot. I mean, we've had people stay with us for years. And then some of the ones that, like Joe's referencing, we're friends with a lot of entrepreneurs in the community or other people in the community, or they'll have a kid come home, need an internship. We'll bring them on, or we've had a couple commercial real estate people come on board because this is prime location for commercial real estate, and they'll work for us for, a year until they get their first, purchase, and then they're out of here, but for the most part, we've always kept a really good culture though. I think a lot of it has to do though. We're pretty old school. We've got company culture mounted everywhere. We've got our top beliefs, all posted in places. So, we try to keep it as positive as you can. But to speak on the brewer thing,
it's a hard job, and selling beer is a hard job.
But I've said this before too, and it's like this with anything, I'm sure. But a lot of times when you're a brewer, or even a sales guy, you could say this for anybody, but brewers are easy to say it about. When you lay in bed at night and you think about being a brewer, you tell yourself, oh my gosh, I'm going to drink so much great beer, and people are going to be looking at me going, it's so, and they do. But that's 5% of the time. The other 95% of the time, you're lugging around hot hoses. It's hot. Like Joe's saying, it's a very demanding environment, so the programming going into it can be a much better thing too if brewers realize, hey, I'm going to bust my ass.
And especially a company that's growing, right?
Yep.
Like we haven't grown as fast as some other breweries, but it's been slow and steady, and we're going up, and it puts pressure, the growth pressure, and you can probably relate from your own business, Spencer, on your team, because what they were doing this time last year versus this time this year, it's different.
And
it's harder, and there's new people, and you have to train people, and you have, one of our challenges is a different topic, but we have the most historic and oldest brewery in Charlotte by far.
It's a mixture of, we've got a lot of new and a lot of old.
This thing was pieced together originally by John Marino, the founder of Old Mecklenburg. And he didn't know what he was doing when he did this. He had never been a production brewer.
And all the equipment originally came from
South
End Brewing in South End, and he found it, put it together, and then we put it together a little bit different the way we needed to. So there's a lot of,
those tanks, Eric, I think you know this as good as anybody. One of them, so the copper cladded tanks in the background, one is on display in the lobby at Carolina Premium, which is the big wholesaler in Charlotte. They distribute Miller Coors. And I saw another one of the fermenters is at the Time Warner Cable Hornets Arena.
Yep.
Okay, out there. That's part of our brewery. And then the other one I saw was at Noda, right? Did they get rid of it? I think Noda Brewing had
Maybe. Yeah, they might have.
So we have, ours is in operation still. We've patched these things, and maybe we can cut to a picture of the bottom of the kettle. But we put 22 patches in the bottom of this thing over the last 3 years. And finally we cut the whole thing out and replace it. I mean, this is kind of stuff you have to do. So imagine brewing, it's hot, you're trying to get stuff done, and you know your shift's going to end at a certain time, and all of a sudden you hear a noise that sounds like an elephant. The bottom of the kettle pops. You got to stop what you're doing. They finish the brew out, drain it, and then clean this stuff out and get a welder in there, patch it. This is like one of those skits I want to keep doing all the time with Joe. When we got a slow point, I want to go, all right, Joe, tell us what's broken the past 24 hours. Every day it's something.
I've been over here many times, and you were chasing something around that the little screw thing that pushes grain or whatever breaks.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's stuff. So, but here's the thing. Why do you guys keep doing this? And I think I can draw a parallel to why I keep doing why 24 hours of booty is so important, because you guys have this vision and you're chasing an experience that you want to have for yourselves, your employees, and your guests who come in here. Like, there's an experience that, like, it's awesome. And like, you guys know what that feeling is like. And as long as you just keep that as like a touch point and come back to that, like, that's what gets you through fixing patches and grain things and all this shit that goes on.
The hardest thing though is how do you project that to your employees, your staff, right? In your shoes, 24 hours of booty. When you bring on a new board member or a new person, how do you help them realize, hey, look, this thing's all about the experience. I know you want to perform at a high level in your position, but don't forget, this is what we're trying to accomplish.
I talk about all the time. I know people talk about fundraising all the time, and it's super important, but I have had, disagreements with people in conversation on the board, because I'm like, I'm being facetious when I say I don't care about the fundraising, but I don't care about the fundraising. Like, I just really want the experience to be incredible, and then the fundraising actually just happens. And so I just want them to come and check it out, and then they're like, oh, I see what this is about.
I think you're right? Because don't they say something like people give with their heart, or they pay with emotion?
It's storytelling. You guys are in the storytelling business, and the 24 Foundation is in the storytelling business, and it's impactful and important stories that people need to hear. And when they hear those stories, and then they see where the money goes and what it's for and what we're doing, and then they experience the event, then a light switch flips on. So I don't, you know what I mean? Like, it ends up becoming fundraising, but I always chase the experience. All I really talk about is that.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes people forget what you say, right? This is the classic expression, but they never forget how you made them feel. So it's that sticks with you.
That's one of our company things, and I talk about it in all of our presentations, especially when I go on the road and meet with people. One of Joe and I's slides is, in every beer, we want to enhance life's experiences with our beer. You know, we want to make everything a little bit better.
That's the mission. So, I mean, if you have a wedding, or if you're at your favorite baseball game or football, soccer, or whatever, and you're there enjoying yourself, and a Sugar Creek beer could be there with you and make that experience a little bit better, help you connect with your friends, give you something that's refreshing and that you enjoy, then we're accomplishing our mission, right? That's really what we want to do, and let you come in. We have, over the last 9 years, we've had, I don't even know how many people have come in here, but it's maybe hundreds of thousands through here.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands. And we have had a lot of people, the first time they've met, right here in this tap room, we're talking, and then they get married and have children.
It ties back to what you're saying, right? You know, when you're an entrepreneur, or when you're on a project that's very hard, you're so in it, you forget to think about the now, you forget to be present, you know, and social media helps us sometimes, because Joe and I appreciate you, man, wherever you are. We've got a guy that's walking around with an awesome Sugar Creek tap handle down his tricep, you know, and we've got people that have shown us and tagged us in Sugar Creek fish balloon tattoos and things like that, you know, and so it's amazing when you see that. And even
people have connected here because it's not necessarily about the beer, it's about the connection, kind of like you talked about with the original Booty ride. People connect here. They build families. They get married. They get job interviews. It's really a community meeting place, right? That the brewery is. And that's why I think they've been so popular all over the place, because it becomes your local, it's like the old Cheers mentality, your local watering hole. But hey, we welcome kids in here. You can bring kids in. You can bring your dogs, bring your family. We're kid friendly. Kids can sit right up at the bar and have a soda with you. And people meet up and transactions happen, contracts happen, marriages, all these things that we've been fortunate to be part of their lives in a variety of different ways. So it's been that's what gets you through when you have to pull that auger out of the grain, the silo 100 feet out into the parking lot and shove it back in there. Or like,
that's every day though. Things break every day.
Our dream is hopefully we can have a new brewery someday, and when we do this thing will be it's a lot different driving a new car versus a used one. But hey, we make great beer here, and definitely going to shed a tear when we leave this place, because amazing beers come out of it with a lot of sweat, blood, and tears, where people
I'm taking everything when we leave.
I think we and I've been saying this, and I'm sure it's controversial, but I would challenge any brewery in Charlotte to have, I don't know if anybody has more awards than us as far as medals go in various competitions. We might not have the most in Great American Beer Festival or World Beer Cup, but we have medals in every major competition: World Beer Cup, Great American Beer Festival, U.S. Open every single year. That's the third largest competition in the country. One of the largest in the world.
I think the smallest one we do is our state cup.
There was 9,000 entries this year. We just got a bronze in American IPA for the Path to Enlightenment,
which is huge.
One of the biggest categories.
Yeah, that's always, because that's what America drinks.
So every year since we've been open, we've won medals in Best of Craft and North Carolina Brewers Cup and Craft Beer Wars. We won the one in South Carolina for the Big O, the IPA War competition. So
a lot of those medals aren't even up. I think we've got 35-ish or 6 that are major competitions.
So I'm super proud of that, and it happens with old equipment, moving one valve at a time, and blood, sweat, and tears, and that's fun.
You're one of 20 master cicerones in the world. I mean, I tell people you're like an F1 driver of beer. Like, there's very, very few people in the entire world who have your credentials and experience and background. So I'm not that surprised you're brewing kick-ass beer with old equipment. I can't wait to see what happens when you have new equipment.
When we get that Ferrari.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know if people appreciate that. Like, that you are here at this brewery with those credentials and how special that is. I don't know. Maybe people do appreciate it. Obviously, the people who do awards and are actually judging beer recognize the output from that work. And I know that wasn't easy either, but that was a ton of perseverance to get that done.
Thank you. Yeah. I had a little bit of imposter syndrome almost, but I couldn't have done it without the support of my partners, Eric, and my family and everybody, because it was insane. Now, you talk about failures. I failed twice before I finally passed. And there's a gauntlet just before till you get to the top, right? So I figured about roughly 5,000 hours over 6 to 7 years of real deliberate, hard, like sweat, your brow sweating, studying of beer. And then not only do you have to have the knowledge, so you can put it out, spit it out, put it on paper, but you have to do oral board exams with industry leaders, guys like Mitch Steele from New Realm, who was founder of Stone Brewing, founding brewmaster of Stone. They'll be there. Randy Mosher, Ray Daniels, these guys big in the beer industry, interviewing you in a brewery you might not know, oral exams, hundreds of pages of, I think I wrote like 117 pages over 2 days of essays, and then 60 beers blind over the course of 2 days, something like that. I would say, 3 to 4 panels a day of blind beers in a variety of different ways. And the thing that's challenging about it, Spencer, is that you have to have the knowledge in there. So they had done the studying, but then you have to get your body to work to produce, to let you know what you're smelling and tasting, and that is not. It's not the same as writing an essay. It's like an athletic event. It sounds ridiculous, but you have to get your mind and body in sync. So it's the nose, the palate, the front part of your brain, the old part of your brain, you know, where all that happened, and calm your heart rate down. I mean, things as little as the pH of your saliva can impact how you taste a beer. So you get nervous, you're on the spot, and you have to be 85% accurate. That's why nobody passes it. I wouldn't say nobody, but it's 99% failed. The year that I passed, I was the only one.
You do all that, and then you wake up and you realize the day of the exam, you got a stuffy nose.
Yeah. Well, that's tough too, right? And that happens. And that puts people out. So like, I didn't tell anybody this before, but speaking of bikes, my brother lives in Chicago, and they used to host the exam only in Chicago. And he lived about 4 miles from the exam, where they did the exam in the city. So I borrow my brother's bike and get up early, an hour before the exam or 30 minutes before the exam, and ride the bike to the exam. And when I get there, I'm sweating a little bit. My heart rate's up. My nose is clear. I've smelled everything. My head's clear. You get out and it's a beautiful day. And then you show up, you're ready to go. You know, you got your body going. And I think the bike ride really helped me on the tasting part. It really gets you going. But
well, there's a lot there. You got that vitamin D from the sun. You've got
you just feel great.
Your eyeballs are getting blasted with. I mean, that's the best thing in the world. You should have taken your shoes off and walked around in the grass a little.
Ground
first,
a little bit. No, but
ground a little bit.
But last thing I'll say about that is it was intimidating, Spencer, because people that have written books about beer were in there taking the exam with me. And people that had master's degrees in fermentation and distilling were in there taking the exam with me. People that I looked up to from big companies like Anheuser-Busch or Coors, those big, and they have all the resources in the world. They send people to take the exam there that they've trained and have traveled and worked with the classic, like imagine working for Miller Coors and you're studying Pilsner Urquell in the Czech Republic, and you can just fly out there in the company nickel and meet with the brewmaster. That's what the kind of resources they have to be able to do that. And they do that to pass this exam, and they were in there with me. So it was cool to see them, and it was imposter syndrome to get through the gauntlet in 2019 and pass, and the other guys didn't. So that was but it comes down to persistent, because I didn't pass originally. And a lot of times people say that they get mad at the test, they blame the test, they blame the graders, they make all kinds of their victim mentality for a variety of things, quit because it's too hard, too expensive, whatever. And I'm like, I'm not quitting until I pass. That was
I mean, a lot of those
that was basically it.
A lot of those are very valid statements. So I'll give you a good example. The Cicerone program was not that big 10 years ago. And the exam was not as distilled down as it started to become. Would you? Well,
I don't know, but I know it evolved.
Yeah. So in the end, it did. And James Ty, who's a good friend of his, and I love the guy. We've had a lot of good times together.
Maybe we can get him on the show.
I'd love to get him on the show. James has taken the exam several times, and he was the best, most humble guy. He's amazing. And he gave me the best explanation, and Joe as well. He's like, look, I've taken this exam a number of times now. I won't say how many. And every time it gets a little harder. And I thought he was right, because every day the talent that showed up got better. Every day the beer industry was better. There was more beer. There was better beer. So then you saw, in my opinion, I didn't take the master exam, but I drank a lot of beer with Joe leading up to it. You saw a lot of evolution through the beer business and the exam as well, and then on the expensive side, if you're not within a wholesaler or you're not positioned with a brewery that can support you, it's thousands of dollars of beer. It's crazy. English bitters and German styles. Joe had to become very fluent in every style of beer, and there was times where I was driving across the state line to go find proper beers to bring back for him to taste. So
that was a blessing.
And then how many years is it total? Like when you read the story at the barbecue joint at lunch, and you were like, this is what I want to do.
About 6 years.
Yeah.
So that's not as long as the Velodrome, but 6 years. And you try to set the standard for the employees. Hey, I want to do something like this, and let everybody know we take quality serious. and learn, and then you kind of go through it. But I mean, look, the one thing that's disheartening about it, and then I'll stop beating this dead horse, is you do something like that and you're proud, and then you go online and you see that the trolls always show up, and they say one thing that just blows my mind, and I'm not surprised by it, but people get pissed off at the Cicerone program because they're like, this is just a money grab. This whole credentialing thing is a money grab, and it's expensive to get through it. And, I'm not doing that because I don't want to give $1 to the Cicerone program because they're just a business trying to be for profit, right? Well, wait a second. So you're saying you're going to stay uneducated and dumb and not challenge yourself?
Not to say that they are.
Well, I mean, look, the credentialing is there for a reason. It lets people know that you have a trusted expert in whatever field it is, whatever you want. And Ray recognized this years ago. He was a visionary. He's retired now, and his people run the business. But Ray recognized that there was a humongous dearth of educated people in the craft beer business, and it was growing, and people didn't know how to handle beer properly. They didn't know how to handle it. They didn't know how to serve it. They weren't brewing it properly. So he's a Harvard grad. He has a Harvard MBA, and he's a smart dude. And he set up the program to kind of like, hey, when you hire a guy like this, or he's got this, that they have a base level knowledge, a base understanding. That's why you have a bar exam for an attorney, right? So is it a money grab to go get certified as an attorney? Would you say it is? No, it's just like becoming a certified welder, certified attorney, certified doctor. Don't doctors have to pass board exams? All that costs money to put on. And if you ask Ray about this, because I have, he'll tell you that he makes the least amount of money on the master at the top. It's more because the least amount of people take it. It's the most difficult to put on.
They have so many
It's the
guys.
cheapest per capita. Yep. And it's the hardest to get to. So it's not like he has a huge hundreds of thousands of people trying to take it. He makes his money on the very, very beginner one where it's more open to everybody. And the top levels he does that just, as part of the business plan. It's not a money maker for him. So, I don't know. Anyway, I beat that horse with a stick.
Well, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, in the end, you end up there's always going to be a group of people that doubt. So the biggest thing for me is as long as you can still enjoy your beer without dissecting everything, you're good. Because that's why we got into this.
Yeah. Well, 1 of 20 is impressive, and it does mean something. So I hope people recognize that.
Yeah, 22 nowadays. But
okay.
Yeah.
One thing you said I wanted to circle back on, it was referencing like young people and starting when you're young.
Yes.
And I think that's an important thing to talk about because like that's the time to take the risks and like don't play it safe. I feel like I went way down the road, way too far, just chasing money or the safe bet. And I should have been taking more risks early. And I mentioned to you guys, like I've had guys who were in their 40s and 50s, like saw what I've done with Booty or buying a business and all this stuff. And they're too afraid and they have too much on the line. Like, they don't want to give up their 401k or risk it or their house or whatever. And that's, I understand that, right? But when you're 25 or 22, like that seems like the time to be throwing stuff out and seeing what sticks and chasing after things that you're good at and you like doing. Because ultimately, I think you mentioned this about being a brewery owner. It's like, you're not doing it for the money, and chasing after money alone is actually pretty dumb. Like that never really ends well. You might have a lot of money, but you're hating your life.
A lot of people don't realize that. Yeah. So that's a very good point.
And you'll find a way. There's a bunch of different ways to make a living, provide for your family, but there's something to be said for doing things you're good at and having joy with what you're doing and control over what you're doing. There's a lot to be said for that. So young folks that may listen to this or talk to you guys, I think, that point shouldn't be lost.
Take the jump, man.
Yeah.
Take the jump. Do it.
It's
Jump
a good
in.
point. I mean, you're lighter on your feet. You can move. You can maneuver faster. You can pivot. How many times we had to pivot? It's definitely a lot harder when you've got more people to feed. But
Spencer, can you show us through your newest tattoo and tell us a little bit about that? Because that's a kind of
he
inspiring.
loves these zinger questions, doesn't he? He got me last week.
The latest one I got is this one.
Yes, that one.
It's so that is an arrow
Can you get that?
with a bent, and it's actually a nod to Lance. He had created this logo, and the message is always forward, never straight. And to me, that I like that because it speaks to perseverance. Like, it's never going to be straight. There's always going to be twists and turns and kinks, and you just have to keep going. And if you keep going, like, you'll make it. Like, we just did a crazy event a couple weeks ago, and like it was challenging. So we did 24-mile plus paddle boarding. Never really been on paddle boards before.
That's what happens when you hang out with this guy.
Yeah. But hey,
there's crazy
once again, I didn't know what was going to happen, but we had done some preparation and thought we could make it, and we did it.
Yeah.
But the kicker on that, just like most things, is if you just keep putting your paddle in the water and don't give up, you'll get there. And I think that's having that longer term vision. And this is just a reminder to me, like, that's like, just keep going.
And to put that into perspective with your tattoo, the event, there was so much bobbing and weaving on that paddleboard event. It was 24 miles, and you kept thinking the finish line was right around that corner, but you just kept putting your paddle in the water.
That's insane. What an accomplishment, and what an awesome event going to be coming up. Dam to dam, 24 miles, stand up on the paddleboard, see if you have what it takes to get through it. And it's 10 hours almost. Is that 10 hours? And then on top of that,
that's going to be a good visual in the lake too. When you see that many people on paddle boards, I mean, just the people that we stopped at, when our little group came up with the safety boat, everybody was smiling and everybody was so happy.
Just awesome.
We had people clapping for us, and a lot of them didn't even know. A lot of them were Garmin people that saw the event on Garmin. So very, very cool stuff. And then that's a future event. This guy never stops thinking. So that's a future event that he's putting together. So that one's in the works right now.
Well, hey, thanks so much for coming today, Spencer. I thought the conversation was great. You're an inspiration to us. And keep up the great work, and I hope we can share a few beers more in the future and keep helping to support the mission and keep inspiring.
And a special big thanks to Mrs. Lueders. She's great. And that was the very first thing when I met Spencer. I wanted to know if he was married, because he spends a lot of time in the community. So hats off to her too.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.